The dark secret Hera doesn't want you to know the whispers begin the sun beat down on the parched earth, baking the terracotta roofs of the village nestled at the foot of Mount Olympus. A generation had passed since the echoes of the Trojan War faded, but the shadow of the gods still loomed large, particularly that of Hera, queen of Olympus. Every year, the village of Ethuria held a grand festival in her honor, a tradition woven into the fabric of their lives, a ritual they believed ensured their prosperity and protection. Garlands of wilting wildflowers adorned the doorways, their vibrant hues dulled by the relentless summer heat. The air, thick with the scent of dried herbs and wood smoke, buzzed with a nervous energy. This year, the festival held a different weight, a palpable anxiety clinging to the villagers like the dust on their sandals. Hera, a young woman with eyes the color of the Aegean Sea and hair as dark as the raven's wing, stood apart from the bustling preparations. She watched the villagers with a mixture of pity and frustration. Their frantic prayers to Hera, their increasingly lavish offerings, seemed to her not acts of devotion but of desperation. Hera, unlike the rest of Ethuria, felt no reverence for the queen of Olympus. She saw not a benevolent protector, but a demanding, capricious force. Her affinity for the natural world, her ability to communicate with the creatures of the forest and field, had given her a different perspective, a glimpse beyond the veil of divine pronouncements. The whispers had started weeks ago, quiet at first, then growing louder with each passing day. The livestock, once healthy and robust, began to sicken and die. Crops withered in the fields, the once fertile soil now dry and cracked. At night, strange sounds echoed from the surrounding hills, unsettling whispers of monstrous shapes moving in the shadows. The village elders, their faces etched with worry, declared Hera's displeasure as the cause. They demanded greater sacrifices, more elaborate offerings, hoping to appease the seemingly wrathful goddess. But Hera felt a different truth stirring within her. She had seen the fear in the eyes of the deer, heard the frantic chirping of the birds. They spoke not of Hera's wrath, but of something else, something darker, lurking in the heart of the mountain. Her skepticism, her refusal to blindly accept the elders' pronouncements, had long made her an outcast in Ethuria. She was tolerated but never truly accepted, her connection to nature viewed with suspicion rather than reverence. One sweltering afternoon, driven by a growing unease, Hera ventured beyond the village limits, following a barely discernible path that wound through the sun-baked hills. The path led her to a place forgotten by time, a hidden grove where the air hung heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth. There, nestled amongst the ancient trees, she found a crumbling shrine, overgrown with ivy and moss. The carvings on the weathered stone depicted not Hera, but a serpent entwined with a staff, a symbol Hera had only seen glimpsed in dusty, forgotten scrolls. This was a shrine to Echidna, a primordial goddess, mother of monsters, a being whose name was barely whispered in Ethuria, a deity whose worship had been suppressed, replaced by the more palatable, more politically advantageous worship of Hera. A chill ran down Hera's spine, not from fear, but from a strange sense of recognition. She felt drawn to this forgotten place, as if an unseen hand was guiding her, revealing a truth that had been buried for generations. As she knelt before the crumbling altar, a whisper carried on the wind reached her ears, a voice ancient and powerful. It spoke of a pact, a bargain struck between Hera and a monstrous entity, a bargain that ensured Hera's dominion over the region, a bargain sealed with promises of worship and sacrifice. That night, under the shroud of darkness, Hera returned to the village, the serpent's whisper echoing in her mind. She knew then that the misfortunes plaguing Ethuria were not a result of Hera's anger, but a consequence of a dark secret, a secret Hera didn't want anyone to know. And Hera, the outcast, the girl who spoke with animals, was the only one who could uncover the truth. The festival, meant to honor Hera, was fast approaching. Hera knew she had to act, to reveal the truth before it was too late, before the darkness consuming the mountain claimed Ethuria and all its inhabitants. The dark secret Hera doesn't want you to know the serpent's shadow. The festival was in full swing. The air thrummed with the rhythmic beat of drums, the melodies of lyres, and the chanting of prayers to Hera. A thick, cloying incense filled the air, meant to please the goddess, but to Hera, it only masked the stench of fear and desperation clinging to the village. She moved through the celebrating crowd, a ghost in her own home, her mind racing, the serpent's whisper a constant companion. Hera knew she couldn't simply accuse Hera. The villagers, blinded by their faith, would never believe her. She needed proof, something tangible to expose the truth. Her instincts, honed by years of communion with nature, drew her towards the temple of Hera, a gleaming white structure that dominated the village square. She'd always felt an unsettling presence within those pristine walls, a darkness that belied the supposed sanctity of the place. Under the cover of the festivities, Hera slipped away from the crowd, her heart pounding against her ribs. The back of the temple, shrouded in shadows, offered a sliver of concealment. There she discovered a loose stone in the foundation, almost hidden beneath a tangle of overgrown vines. With trembling hands, she pulled the stone free, revealing a dark, narrow passage leading down into the earth. The serpent's whisper grew stronger, urging her forward. The passage opened into a hidden chamber, the air stale and cold. Dust motes danced in the faint light, filtering through cracks in the ceiling. The walls were covered in faded frescoes, depicting scenes Hera had never seen before. Hera, not in her usual regal pose, but engaged in what looked like a negotiation. Opposite her, a colossal serpentine form, its scales shimmering with an otherworldly light. Hera recognized the entity from the shrine of Echidna. In the center of the chamber, a stone pedestal held a collection of ancient scrolls, their papyrus brittle with age. Hera carefully unfurled one, her fingers tracing the faded ink. The text, written in a language older than Etheria itself, spoke of a pact made between Hera and the serpent, a creature identified as Draken, a child of Echidna. Draken, promised worship and sacrifice, would ensure Hera's dominion over the region, protecting her followers from rival deities and earthly threats. But the scrolls also hinted at a darker side to the bargain. Draken's protection came at a cost that was never fully explained. A cost that Hera suspected was now being paid by the village. As Hera delved deeper into the scrolls, she heard the sound of approaching footsteps. The village elders, alerted to her absence, had followed her. Hera, what is the meaning of this? You defile Hera's temple with your presence? Elder Thuron, his voice trembling with indignation, stepped into the chamber, followed by two other elders. I found the truthers scoffed, their faces a mixture of anger and fear. Hera is our protector. Your blasphemous words will bring her wrath upon us all. Hera tried to explain, to show them the scrolls, but they refused to listen. They branded her a heretic, a danger to the village, and dragged her back to the festival grounds. The elders, fueled by fear and a desire to maintain control, presented Hera to the gathered villagers, accusing her of heresy and consorting with dark forces. Hera, defiant, tried to speak to reveal the truth she had uncovered, but the villagers, whipped into a frenzy by the elders' pronouncements, wouldn't listen. They saw only a rebellious girl, a threat to their fragile peace. As the elders prepared to punish Hera, the ground began to tremble. A low growl echoed through the village square, a sound that sent shivers down the spines of even the most devout Hera worshippers. The animals, the very creatures who had always been Hera's allies, began to behave strangely, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Birds screeched overhead, their cries sharp and frantic. Dogs snarled and snapped, their fur bristling. Then, from the shadows of the Hera temple, it emerged. A monstrous serpentine form, larger than any creature Hera had ever imagined, its scales shimmering like obsidian in the flickering torchlight, its eyes burning with ancient rage fixed on Hera. The serpent Draken had arrived. The dark secret Hera doesn't want you to know the reckoning of Olympus panic erupted. Villagers screamed and scattered, their carefully constructed festival dissolving into chaos. The elders, their faces pale with terror, seemed to have finally realized the gravity of their mistake. Draken, his serpentine form coiling around the crumbling temple of Hera, unleashed a deafening roar that shook the very foundations of the village. The ground cracked and split, the sweet scent of wildflowers replaced by the acrid smell of sulfur. Hera, forgotten in the pandemonium, felt a strange calm descend upon her. The fear that gripped the villagers seemed to bypass her, replaced by a sense of purpose. She understood now. The whispers at the shrine, the forgotten scrolls, her own strange connection to nature, it had all been leading to this moment. She was not just an outcast, a girl who talked to animals. She was a descendant of Echidna's priestesses, the keepers of balance, the protectors of the old ways. A memory, ancient and powerful, surged through her, unlocking abilities she never knew she possessed. As Draken rampaged through the village, toppling houses and scattering debris, Hera stepped forward. She closed her eyes, drawing strength from the earth beneath her feet, from the whispers of the wind in the trees, from the forgotten deity whose presence she now felt so strongly. When she opened her eyes, they glowed with a preternatural light, the same light she had seen in the eyes of the animals moments before. Draken, her voice, amplified by an unseen force, cut through the din of the chaos. The serpent paused, his massive head turning towards her, his burning gaze now focused on the small, defiant figure standing before him. "I know your pain. I know the betrayal you have suffered. Hera promised you worship, promised you sacrifice, but she gave you only neglect and scorn." Draken hissed, a sound that sent the remaining villagers scrambling for cover. "She promised power, dominion, and for centuries I have languished in the shadows, forgotten, abandoned." Hera held her ground, her voice unwavering. "Hera sought to control you, to use your power for her own gain. But you are not a monster to be controlled, Draken. You are a force of nature, a child of the primordial goddess. You deserve respect, not servitude." Hera reached out her hand towards the towering serpent, a gesture not of fear but of understanding. "There is another path, Draken. A path of balance, of reverence. A path where your power is honored, not exploited." The serpent hesitated, the rage in his eyes flickering. He looked at the terrified villagers, at the crumbling temple of Hera, at the girl who stood before him, unafraid, offering not sacrifice but understanding. A low rumble emanated from Draken's throat, the tremors subsiding. He lowered his massive head, his gaze softening. The glow in his eyes dimmed, replaced by a flicker of something akin to sadness. "The pact is broken," Draken rumbled, his voice now a low whisper. "Hera's reign is over." He turned his immense body, the earth trembling with each movement, and slowly retreated back towards the mountain, disappearing into the shadows from whence he came. Silence descended upon the ravaged village. The villagers, slowly emerging from their hiding places, stared in awe and disbelief at Hera. The elders, their authority shattered, looked at her with a mixture of fear and newfound respect. "The serpent, it listened to you," Elder Thuron stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. Hera nodded. He needed to be heard, not feared. He needed to be reminded of who he truly is. The villagers, witnessing Hera's power and the truth of her words, finally understood the deception they had lived under. They renounced their blind faith in Hera, realizing that her protection had been a selfish bargain, a pact that benefited her and endangered them. The true nature of Hera's secret was revealed, a bargain struck with a powerful entity, a bargain she had broken, leading to the near destruction of their village. Hera, the outcast, the girl who talked to animals, became the spiritual leader of Etheria. She guided them towards a more harmonious relationship with the natural world, teaching them to respect not just the Olympian gods, but the older, forgotten deities, the forces of nature that held true power. She taught them the importance of balance, of respecting all aspects of the divine. As Hera stood before the villagers, a new shrine being constructed in the village square, a shrine not to Hera, but to Echidna and the earth, a whisper reached her on the wind. It spoke of other villages, similarly bound by Hera's influence, villages suffering under the weight of forgotten pacts. Hera looked towards the horizon, her eyes filled with a quiet determination. Her journey, she knew, had just begun. The whispers of lore carried on the wind hinted at other secrets waiting to be uncovered, other villages in need of her help, other dark pacts made by the gods, waiting to be broken.